If you have a desire to become a better version of your current self, then this podcast is for you. I share with you helpful thoughts, tips, and stories surrounding fitness and self-improvement which you can apply to your life today. So for those of you that want to take control of your life, to learn, to grow, to become that which you desire most, I am your host, Connor Malone, and this is the pursuit of constant improvement. Mental health is a vital part of self-improvement because without it, you have nothing. And with my own pursuit of constant improvement, it's one of my main focuses of maintaining my mental health. And in today's episode, I'm going to share with you exactly how I do that, exactly how I have done that, and the things that I've picked up on over the past 6 years that have helped me do that. Because what you'll often find with this episode, it will probably point out to you at some point, there'll be similarities here, particularly if you are a young guy, things that maybe you've gone through, ways that you've felt, and hopefully this will give you ways to maybe deal with it and help you push on forward, obviously with your self-improvement and putting a huge emphasis on that mental health because it can perish so easily, it can fade so quickly. So to me, when I have it, when I am in a good position with my mental health, I do put a lot of emphasis on maintaining it. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Now, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're happy, you're feeling good, whatever, maybe you've had a good day, you're doing something well, and then all of a sudden you could be in social media, maybe you're talking to someone and they tell you something they've done or you see something someone else has done and your heart just kind of sinks, like you just feel empty in the sense of somebody else has done something so astronomically better than you that it just makes you feel worthless. You're just like, don't know what I'm even doing, don't know why I'm bothering. Because this is an issue, is a problem with that I've had, it's a problem that a lot of young guys have in general, and it is comparison. Because we're in a world now where everybody wants to show their best side, so everybody obviously posts that on social media, that's all everybody talks about. So what I found is there's been times when I have been feeling great, whatever, and I could see one thing and it just gets dragged out of you. Because Theodore Roosevelt once said, comparison is the thief of joy. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that we're in a world now where comparison is easy. People are always talking about how well they're doing. People are showing you that on social medias. And it can be very easy to fall into the trap of thinking that other people are doing better than you. And one of the first things that I've started to focus on in my self-improvement is not comparing myself. So you'll find that in today's episode, I'm going to talk a lot about how we can stop comparing ourselves to others and how we can focus on ourselves, on our own improvement, on our own mental health. Because as I said, that's where it often gets taken away, where feelings of doubt and insecurity can come in, is from comparison from there. And one of the biggest ways that happens actually is social media. But one of the questions I ask myself when I speak to clients about this is, how often do you go on social media and you come off it feeling better or more energized than when you went on it? Like, how many times do you scroll down TikTok, you scroll down Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is you're using, and you lock your phone, you think, I feel better now. It just doesn't happen. It drains us of energy because the type of stuff that we're feeding ourselves tends to be, it might on the surface seem positive, but it's draining us of energy. It's opening us up to comparing to others and everything like that. And I found that was one of the things that was draining me. So one of the first things and the things that I do on a regular basis to help me with my mental health and maintain it is reduce my screen time. It is reduce the amount of time that I am on social media, because it's a comparison platform for a lot of people. Now, of course, you can say to yourself, I'm not going to compare myself, I'm going to go in here, I'm just going to do whatever. But it is a natural thing to compare yourself. It's very hard to hide that. So one of the most impactful things that I've done, and I do on a regular basis, is limit my time on social media. Not just for that reason of comparison, but as I said in the beginning, how many times you actually go on it and feel better after it. Like, it's so commonly accepted now that social media is the thing. It's like everybody's on it. It's where everybody has their status. It's just as normal to have social media. And I'm not saying that you have to go and delete your social media or anything like that, but at least if you take one thing from today's episode, take that maybe you're not getting as much from it as you first thought. Maybe it is draining you of energy. Maybe it is opening you up to comparison. And I believe that it's a very good start for most guys is to reduce the amount of time that they have on social media. Maybe it's removing certain things that you follow, whatever it happens to be. I use limits on my screen time. I deleted certain social medias because they brought me no value. And every time I used them, I just felt worse after them. So if you can ask yourself that question, how do I feel after being on my phone and using certain apps? If the answer is worse, then now you've got something to action. You can start to remove that. And for me, that's one of the biggest things that I have done to help maintain my mental health and keep in a good position throughout my days. Another thing I've done is focusing on myself. We are very, like in a world now, obviously with social media, we do put a lot of focus and attention into other people. It's natural. As I said, we compare to others. However, your own improvement will do a ton for you in terms of your mental health. It will give you structure. It will give you purpose. It gives you something to strive for, something to pursue, something to push forward with. That's why I value the pursuit of constant improvement so much, because it helps me stay in alignment. It helps me push forward the things that I want. Like my daily habits, let's say I'm not saying I do this every day, but when I meditate, when I journal, when I train, some of these things I do every day, they're all natural sources of dopamine. They work wonders for my mental health. I feel great when I do them. So by focusing on yourself and filling your days and your routine with activities that make you actually feel better after you do them, can be a really, really powerful thing. Because I used to have nothing necessarily to focus on, nothing to gain value from, nothing to gain purpose from. But when I started bringing habits into my life like these, that made me better, that helped me self-improve, it completely changes my day. I can do things on a daily basis that make me more valuable. They help me learn more. Because see, we guys typically, we want to be valuable, whether it's to your partner, whether it's to your friends. Like we live in a world where status is such a highly valued thing. Like if you want to be valuable, whether it's to yourself or to others, like you need to learn, you need to improve. And self-improvement, focusing on yourself can be one of the ways to do that. So not only do you get these natural, I would say almost highs of dopamine from these habits and things like that, but you also just get better, which makes you more valuable to the people that you love, to people around you. Makes you a more valuable person, which is a lot of men strive for that. They want to be a good person. In fact, there's a good quote from Marcus Aurelius, and he says, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." We're always saying like, oh, this guy's good, or that this guy does this and it's really good, or I admire this, whatever. See whatever that is that makes you a good person, just do it. Like focus on just being that guy. Like we put a lot of emphasis into saying who's a good guy, who's not a good guy, what would be good, what would be bad. Just do the right thing and push forward with your own self-improvement. That's what Marcus Aurelius advised, and I take a lot of value in that going forward. Now, another thing that has impacted me hugely, particularly from a worry perspective, I was quite a worrier. I suppose most of us are. There's very few people on this earth that do not worry. In fact, I just listened to an audiobook called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. It's written by Dale Carnegie. I've listened to it twice, and he wrote it almost 100 years ago, in fact. And back then, he was talking about how worry is one of the biggest killers of individuals on this earth. Not directly, but through what it causes. See, when people worry, they don't do things that they truly should be doing. They overthink. They bring on, you increase your chances of disease, of ill health. You reduce like the quality of your relationships by worry. Worrying causes a lot of damage. So imagine being in the position where you can reduce the amount you worry. And this is one way I've done, one thing that I've used, and that is the dichotomy of control. Okay, so the dichotomy of control, very simply, one of the things is, the good definition I found online, it allows us to find happiness in hardship, contentment in adversity, and acceptance in loss. And it is the idea that the only thing that we can always control is how we respond to things. So things will happen to us in life, like scenarios will happen. Maybe you'll miss your bus, you'll miss your train, you'll drop something, things will break, people will say something to you, you'll lose things. These things will happen. See, when it's done, it's done. But how do you respond to that? Because you can always control that. There might be an initial bout of sadness or anger or whatever, but then how do you respond to that? It's a powerful thing for a guy, and it's a very powerful thing that I hold dear to me. Is like, right, you have the power to choose how you want to respond to this now. The initial emotion is by, how are you going to respond to this? And what it also teaches us is that the things that are out with our control. Because when I realised how many things are somewhat out of my control, yes, I can influence them, but they are ultimately out of my control. I can never fully control them. It gives you a lot of acceptance. You're like, all right. And it tends to help me stop worrying about things. It's one of the first things that goes through my head. If something happens and I start to worry, if I'm going to be late for something, if I think somebody, or maybe I said the wrong thing, or I think somebody's going to say something about me or whatever, I think, right, can I control this? No, it's done. So then my next thought leads to, right, well, how can I respond to this? And that's been one of the most powerful things for helping me maintain my mental health and not letting worry run ragged in my mind. Has been one of like, listen, the only thing I can do right now is just respond to this as best I can. That's it. I'm in total acceptance of that. There's a thing called the Serenity Prayer that I repeat to myself a lot. Now, I'm in no way religious, but I find a great deal of power in this. And it says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So by realising the things that you can't change, realising the things that you can change, the things that you can go on and impact, it clears up and it can remove worry. It can help reduce worry from there. And if you have the wisdom to be able to separate those two things, realise what you can control, what you can't control, it's a very powerful thing. And I repeat that to myself almost daily because I find so much value in it from there. As I said earlier, there's so many things that, yes, we can influence in life, pretty much everything, but very few things can we completely control. And again, it helps me worry less. It helps me take less of a victim's mentality. That's one thing that I see in so many young guys. I had it as well. I still do have elements of it. And it's that victim's mentality. When something goes wrong, you automatically want to blame something or someone else. It's like, oh, well, whatever, you think you're the victim there. That's not the case. How many times have you heard somebody, they do something, maybe they've done something wrong, and they automatically blame it on other people? You just lose so much respect for them when that happens. You can't trust that person. You can't value that person. So by understanding the dichotomy of control, you can avoid that victim's mentality. So you can reduce worry and avoid that victim's mentality. And for me, those two things coupled together really, really have impacted me, my mental health, and helped me maintain it from there. Now, the next thing with mental health and helping maintaining that is removing bad habits. Because if you're in a position right now where you're like, right, I'm mentally in a good position, I feel good, I'm enjoying what's going on in my life right now, I have no big worries or anything like that, you're in such a fortunate position. But what can happen is your bad habits can pull you out of that. Let's say it's drinking. Again, maybe you're in a great position now, it's drinking or taking drugs, and you're doing that on a consistent basis. That can be a spiral down the wrong path. So by realising what bad habits make you feel certain ways, you can much better maintain your mental health. This one, again, I've done this a lot in the past year or so. What brings chaos? What brings inconsistency into your life? What makes you feel bad? Is it that screen time? Because a lot of guys don't address this. They think of like, oh, like let's say they go out for a night out, they feel terrible the next day. They don't address the fact that that is coming from the alcohol, it's coming from the bad habits, whatever habit happens to be. That is the habit, and they struggle to face that. Because when you face it, you can remove it or you can reduce it. And there's such a powerful thing you can do going forward. And again, you have control over that. You have complete control over that if you can remove something like that. And one of the big things that I've seen this around, particularly one of my clients over the past 6 months, I've seen them do this, and it's been a joy to see. And it is removing themselves, not from necessarily a bad habit, but from a toxic environment. That's what people call it, toxic, if that's the right word. Basically, people, places, could be habits, whatever it happens to be. It's a place where either people you spend time with, an area that you're in, or a habit that you do, they bring negativity into your life. They make you feel worse. Now, to some extent, we are going to have to endure these things. We're going to have to endure some form of difficulty, okay? But there are also things that we don't have to endure. Things that we're just merely putting up with. You can remove those things. So it's like, is it certain friends that just always maybe they talk shit about you? Maybe they're jealous of you. Maybe all they do is complain and talk negative about other people, and it drags you into it. You can choose either not to respond to that and not have a negative opinion on others, or just choose not to spend time with them. Maybe it's a certain place that you go because everybody else goes there, but you don't actually like it. You can choose not to go there. Again, maybe it's those habits. You can remove them. It's very common that people are dragged into bad habits and bad environments by certain people. And that can automatically bring on that victim's mentality. Oh, it's so-and-so's fault. It's not their fault. They may be one of the instigators in it, if you like. But you can control whether you spend time with them. You can control whether you put yourself in that environment or not. So you can also choose to help remove yourself, or again, at least reduce your time in that. That's one of the big things you can do. Because a lot of people get stuck on like, oh, well, it feels good at the time, like drinking alcohol, like going out at the weekend. People are like, oh, it's the only time in my weeks where I feel good. And listen, I get that, but how do you feel the next 2 days? Is it worth it? No, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. It's like you feel so much worse for the next 2 days after that, and you have to face that and then push on from there again and remove yourself from that environment from there. Now, another thing that I've done that helps me maintain my mental health and keep me on the right path is have an idea of where I want to end up. Like, what do I want to represent? What do I want to be remembered by? I always remember this question that somebody asked me, and it was, what do you want someone to say at your eulogy? Now, your eulogy is what someone reads out when you're dead, right? And it's quite a morbid thought initially, but what do you want people to say about you? It's like, oh, well, he was a good laugh. Oh, he could take a good drink at the weekend, and was that it? How do you want people to remember you? Do you want to be, oh, he was such a disciplined person, he was such a caring person, done the things he said he was going to do. He was all these things. What do you want to be remembered as? Because if you do that, you can give yourself an idea of what you want to represent, what type of person you want to be, and it can give you something to focus on. It can give you something to embody. It doesn't need to be where you want to end up, but it could be a trait like confidence. It could be discipline. It could be like being trustworthy. What are these things that you want to embody? And it gives you something to push forward with, something to pursue, something to find purpose in. Because Viktor Frankl, he once said, when a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. I.e., they go out at the weekend, they look for substances, they look for unnatural sources of dopamine, all these things. Again, we spoke about in the beginning where you can get these natural sources of happiness, of purpose, from your training, from your reading, from your improvement, all these things that help you improve. You can find a great deal of purpose there. Whereas if you're just pursuing pleasures, at least down the wrong path. And that's what Viktor Frankl, he's a big advocate of finding purpose and meaning, and not necessarily finding it, but creating it. Because people will try and spend a lot of time thinking, right, what is my purpose? What all this thing? You can create it. By envisioning roughly what you want, the type of person that you want to become, you can bring a great deal of purpose into your life. And that's what Viktor Frankl was saying there. Because when we have something to strive for, it gives us purpose. And Jordan Peterson says something about that. He says, our positive emotion is linked to our pursuit of valuable goals. So again, our positive emotion is linked to the pursuit of valuable goals. Not the achievement of valuable goals, but the pursuit of them. If you have an end goal that you really value, like you really want to become this type of person, or you really want to do this set thing, see when you're pursuing that and you're getting closer to it, you gain a great deal of positive emotion, as he says, from this. You derive a great deal of purpose from it. Whereas right now, if you don't have that, idea of where you want to end up, you're not going to get any of that purpose that we speak about from there. So that can be one of the things that you can do to push forward with that. Now, I want to go over a few things that I do daily, because as I said, this has been very much about maintaining mental health. I am not the right person to help you solve your mental health problems, but I can at least share what I've done to help me maintain mine. And one of the things that I do daily, they have acute impacts on my mental health. Like in terms of like they make me feel better at the time. Those natural sources of dopamine, I suppose, as we spoke about. Now, one of the first things is gratitude. Practicing gratitude on a daily basis. Thinking of what are you grateful for? Are you grateful for your health? Are you grateful for your family members' health? Is it an object that you have? Is it a way that you feel? Is it something that you've experienced? What are you grateful for? Because the more you start to list off the things that you're grateful for, generally the happier and the better you feel. Because if you spend so much time focusing on, because our brains lead us often to negative things. They say that a good chunk of our thoughts tend to be negative. But by thinking of what we're grateful for, you're trying to reinforce positive thoughts and think, right, I'm grateful for this. And it starts your day in a good position if you start your day with that. But it's also reinforced in me, because I've done it for so long. In the Calm app, I have logged gratitude on a daily basis, not in a row, but in the total basis for over 930 days. Before that, I used another diary. So I've got well over 1,000 days of practicing gratitude, and only tracks every day you do it. And there's loads of days that I've missed. So that is well over 1,000 times I've said 3 things that I'm grateful for. And a lot of those things overlap all the time. Comes a lot around my health, other people's health. But by me doing that so much, I've got to the point where I usually respond with gratitude. Like, to a lot of things, if something bad happens, I'm not saying all the time, but a lot of the time, if something bad happens, more so on a minor scale, I think, oh well, it could have been worse, it could have been this, it could have been that. And that's what gratitude can do. It's a very powerful habit for you that you could bring in. Another habit is training, is resistance training. Again, the natural release of endorphins that you get, particularly from high intensity exercise. In fact, there's some interesting research coming out at the moment that a good researcher, Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, has covered about how impactful weight training actually is. And one of the main things they found was it really is tied to the intensity of it. If you are training very intensely, the mental benefits you're going to get from that are quite profound in terms of the endorphin release and everything from there. But on top of that, it gives purpose to your weeks. It brings routine into your weeks. So again, that's that purpose we spoke about. Weight training can do that. Any type of training you're doing can do that. It gives you something to pursue. It gives you something to get better at. And it's one of the best things that I've ever done from that. It gives you time that you can go away, stick your headphones on, focus on yourself, and rid your mind of these maybe negative thoughts that you tend to get. The other thing that a lot of people might not tell you that I love and has impacted me greatly has been reading philosophy. People think of philosophy as being boring, which a lot of it is, but ways that people have lived before us is incredible to see with how they've dealt with this. Because what it helps you realise, it changes your perspective. We're not the first people to feel these types of way. Humans feel these types of way, and they have done for hundreds and thousands even of years. So by reading how the ancients dealt with these types of things and how they built their philosophies around that, to me, it gives me a lot of information, a lot of takeaways, things that I can apply, but it also gives me peace of mind. And just the habit of reading as well, it's one of the few things that I can do to switch off my mind from other things, because I'm not a great reader. So I have to really focus on a book that I'm reading, or if I'm listening to an audiobook, if it's a good story, it can just take you away and in a different place from there. So again, those are things that you can do pretty acutely, like straight away, that can help you feel a bit better. And it's things that I do on a daily basis that have really helped me from there. So to take away from today's episode, a few things. Obviously, as so many of you already understand, your mental health is everything. There's a quote that says, "A healthy man wants 1,000 things. A sick man wants only one." Now, people automatically think a sick man and they think of physically unwell. But if you're mentally unwell, it's the exact same thing. You only want one thing, and it is your health. You want your mental health. You want to be in a good position. If you're suffering from mental health issues and you are ill mentally, that's the only thing you want. You can't be bothered thinking about other things that you desire. Material objects, the one thing that you want. And it's a really powerful quote that stuck with me from there. Become focused on your own improvement. You can gain a great deal from it. You can gain a great deal of purpose, pushing forward with your own improvement, a great deal of structure and routine, which a lot of guys need to maintain their mental health. It's structure, it's routine, something to pursue, something to push forward with, and it can do that. Your own improvement can do that. It gives you purpose, as Viktor Frankl said from there. That is what we need, not pleasure. We need purpose. And again, remove draining things, remove those toxic environments. Think of it. What makes you feel worse after you're doing it? And if you don't need to do it, get it to fuck. Like if it's a certain app, if it's certain people, do your very best to remove that. It's something I've done a bit slower than I would have liked, particularly with certain people, but over time, you will thank yourself for doing it. The very last quote for today, so we've had a good few, is from the main man himself, Viktor Frankl again. And he said, "The quest for meaning is the key to mental health and human flourishing." So for him, the quest for meaning, creating your own purpose, that is at the core of our humans' flourishing, of our mental health, having something to pursue, having something to get ourselves better at. It is the key, it's at the centre of him. He wrote a very good book called Man's Search for Meaning. I would highly recommend it. Him himself, he was in Auschwitz, he was in different death camps, he wrote about his experience there and how he found meaning, not only in suffering, but just in life in general, even life after that. And it's quite incredible, and it will change your perspective on purpose as such, because people think that it's something that needs to be found. But from my interpretation of his books, it is very much something that you can create. And I'm sure some of the things that we spoke about could even help you do that. So yeah, I hope this helps you gain clarity on a few things. I hope it helps you to just at least take one thing that you can apply, help you maintain your mental health, because without it, as we said, we have nothing. But with it, it can be a very, very, very powerful thing indeed in our own pursuit of constant improvement. Thank you for listening.